Dear students, we will be discussing today weak forms in English. So far as weak forms are concerned, they are established pattern of language learning. They help you in the overall grooming of communication skills. So far as weak forms are concerned, they are the reduced pattern of their strong forms. They form and they are spoken in order to when we for example I would like to say here, David does not do his work. When we speak the sentence in flow, we will notice that David does not do his work. Here we will find that the D sound of David somewhere weakening the D sound of does. And in this way, the sound of does is weakened and it is reduced from does to us. And in this way, there are many more possible weak forms. For example, if we are talking about conjunctions and when we say that examples of this Ram, Shyam, Mohan and many more, we are using and in its strong form. But when we say Ram and Shyam are good friends, here that and is weakened to un. And when we talk in the poetic expression like Jack and Jill went up the hill, here it becomes and it becomes na, reduced to na sound. English has three sounds. One is this one and another one is schwa. This sound is differently known as the softest vowel of English sound, English language. And for example, we will find that this forms the foundation pivot for 70% of weak forms in English. And here again the next important point I would like to discuss here, that because of accenting and shifting, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed syllable, there are certain function words. Those function words are known as article, auxiliary, conjunction, prepositions, pronouns and a few miscellaneous words. They have their weak forms in English. They are possible weak forms. Today we will be glancing over each possible word. They are probably, precisely, possibly approx 40 words. 40 possibility is that they may range from 40 to 45, but certainly not more than that. That is why I have used approx 40 words having their weak forms. And they all are function words. When they are spoken in smoothness, they found that due to that unstressed part, their sound pattern changes, and that diverts to their spoken terminology, their spoken shape, their spoken form, their pronunciation and accent. Here we will be discussing one by one, and let us discuss the article part. In article, we notice that there are three articles, two indefinite and one definite article. One article, first one in indefinite article a and an. A, the strong form of the A is a, and its weak form is a. In the same way, another indefinite article is and. Its a strong form is and, but weak form is un. And there comes the definite article. Definite article is having two weak forms. This is the, but when it weakens, we find that before vowel it becomes the, but before consonant it becomes the. The weak form is of the is the before consonant. Switching over to articles, the second weak form group of word is auxiliary verbs. They constitute the second unit of weak forms. In auxiliaries, we will begin from present singular verb of present continuous tense, that is. Strong form is, but the weak form is the, or weak form is the. When we talk about next helping verb, next auxiliary, that is am. Strong form becomes am, but the weak form is Strong is am, weak is Third one is are, and this are becomes when it becomes weak. Coming to the past continuous tense, we come at the point was, and this becomes us. Later on, we talk about were, and that becomes weakens as a. And later on, has becomes a, or us. Has becomes us and us. Later on, we have another helping verb, have. This have becomes a. Have. In the similar pattern, had becomes ad, and must becomes must. Moving further to do. This longer do, this sound weakens and becomes da. Then there comes does. This does becomes us after getting its sound weakened. Can becomes can, and could becomes cut. Interestingly, you will notice that in future, will. This will becomes la. You read the sentence, they will go there. And if you speak in the conversational tone, they'll go there, I'll go there. So this will becomes la, and would becomes would. Shall becomes shall. Should become should. In this way, we notice that auxiliaries are also having this. The list of these auxiliaries are also having their proportional weak forms, and they are reduced or they are changed, their sound is changed. Next point comes conjunction. Let us see how conjunctions are reduced patterns for their strong forms. So looking for the weak forms of conjunctions, first example we would like to take, that is and. Strong is and, weak is and another weaker is na. I would like to give example again, that Kushagra and Akhya, they are performing very well in the computer class. But if I say in a bit fluent tone that Kushagra and Akhya, that fluency first loses this strength of this as sound and it becomes un, and the da is lost. When we further weaken it and we find that bread and butter is the wholesome food, and Jack and Jill went up the hill. Furthermore, we see similarly as, this as becomes us and but becomes but. That becomes that. At or and this does sound sometimes is missing at. Than becomes than. Switching over to, we find that certain list of prepositions, their strong form is also reduced, and these prepositions like at, it becomes at, for, that becomes for, before vowel, and then for before consonant. If for is used before vowel, for becomes for, and for becomes before consonant. Of becomes of. Before it is weakened, before weakening it is of, and after weakening of. To becomes, this long to becomes to before vowel, and it becomes ta before consonant. From becomes from. And then let us switch over to pronouns and talk about how does weak forms affect the pronoun. And then like me, and this longer vowel sound e reduced to this e of me reduced to me, and this longer duration sound of we is reduced to we as the part of weak forms. This us becomes us, or sometimes sir, reduced to sir after weakening. You, this you becomes you, and yo becomes your before vowel, and your before consonant when it is used before consonant. Furthermore, we will be noticing he. This he, like for example, you can take some sentence for he or him. I dislike him. I dislike him. So he becomes he or he. His becomes is. Him becomes him or him. And for she, it becomes she. She becomes she. Her becomes her, or some cases only a. Them becomes them, and them. This them is strong form, it becomes them. Coming to a few more words that can be possibly identified as the weak forms, or they should have their weak forms, that is sir. Sir, S-I-R, this is sir long, but sir before vowel and sir before consonant. And there is been. Been is been. And later on we will notice that be. Be becomes be. There becomes the before consonant and the before vowel. Ultimately we come to this point that for understanding weak forms, we need to understand a very particular word that is known as schwa, and that makes the part, if you see here, as weakens into us, but weakens into but, should weakens into should, could, could. So this schwa is forming the base foundation for weak forms in English, posing it available like this, even two becomes talk. And this formation, this schwa, is playing pivotal role in the formation of weak forms in English. And because of this, their sound, their pronunciation changed, their sound changes, and ultimately we came to know that by the use of weak forms, sometimes pitch variation is there, sometimes tone varies, sometimes even meaning changes, and it adds to the understanding of the foreign language, and it also helps us. The use of weak forms includes that it helps us in understanding the native speaker and his tone and his fluency, and it also adds to the fluency of non-native speakers. Communication became the bipolar issue, and where the barriers are reduced or they can be removed, they can be eliminated by understanding the fair display role and uses of weak forms in English. That's it for the day. Thank you.